A new study has come out showing that ivermectin is not effective in treating COVID, contrary to the beliefs of many people in the right wing. So I'm doing this story for two primary reasons. The first is just to let you know that ivermectin is not something you should be using to treat COVID. The second is to make a more general point, and it's less of a point, more of a question, about why the right wing, especially in regard to COVID, just latches on to these random things before there's any evidence for them and then makes it a core part of their movement. I mean, I have heard the word ivermectin from conservatives 1,000 times in the last few months.
We know that our FDA has in many ways failed us by not allowing for the use of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, both of which are used around the world to reduce COVID hospitalizations and deaths.
I pelted them with questions about COVID-19 and the vaccine and therapeutics, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, as well as other proactive treatments and practices were already helping COVID-19 patients all across the country.
On June 5th, Weinstein discussed the benefits of a drug called ivermectin, which can and is around the world used to treat and prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
And to be clear, it's totally fine to think about, hey, this drug is used for this, could it possibly be used for this? And of course, COVID is so devastating, so it's kind of an all hands on deck situation, but that's not the way that they approach it. They approach it like there is clear, hard evidence for what they're talking about, and it is undeniable. Ivermectin, or another great example of this, is hydroxychloroquine, and they act like these things are as proven to be effective as the vaccine. And that's what I think it comes down to. It's not so much about just hoping for more treatments to be available to treat this highly devastating virus, but instead it's, hey, we want to go against the vaccine for a bunch of reasons, but it's going to look kind of weird if we don't offer any other alternative, so we'll pull these random things out of our butt, and that'll help us come off as people who still care about saving human life. There's just some questions about that one tactic, so we should try these other things. And one of the things they project onto people on the left is, you don't want any of these treatments to be effective because you just want everyone to take the vaccine. And first off, I do think everyone should take the vaccine, but when we find out that there's other effective treatments, that's awesome. I love that. I just don't think we should be pushing ones that aren't proven yet. And a great example of why that's the way I approach these treatments is the study that we're going to look at today, which shows ivermectin is not effective. So all those people who have spent months pushing this drug have been pushing something that doesn't work, but they've been acting this entire time like it absolutely would work. So quickly, before we take a look at the findings of the study, if you don't know, ivermectin is originally supposed to be a deworming medication. And for everyone who freaks out when you don't specify this, it is made for animals, but also for humans as well. But when people freak out about that, they don't even stop to think, yeah, it's made for humans for deworming. How that would interact with COVID, I have no clue, even in a intuitive sense. But then that intuitive feeling that I would have about a deworming medication used for COVID is supported by the evidence. Reading from the Wall Street Journal, because I summed this up nicely, the latest trial of nearly 1,400 COVID-19 patients at risk of severe disease is the largest to show that those who received ivermectin as a treatment didn't fare better than those who received a placebo. Quote, there was no indication that ivermectin is clinically useful, said Edward Mills, one of the study's lead researchers. Dr. Mills and his colleagues looked at 1,358 adults who visited one of the 12 clinics in this region of Brazil with COVID-19 symptoms. The patients all had a positive rapid test for SARS-CoV-2 and were at risk of having a severe case for reasons including a history of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, or lung disease. Quote, this is the first large prospective study that should really help put to rest ivermectin and not give any credibility to the use of it for COVID-19, said Peter Hodes, Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, who reviewed the findings. And I encourage you to go read this article because it details exactly how the study was done, but that would take a while for me to read and I don't think would be too interesting to you guys. But the crazy thing is so many conservative media outlets and individuals have been pushing ivermectin that a lot of people are going out and finding the doctors that will prescribe it to them, even though they should not be taking it. Unless, of course, they have worms and need to get dewormed. But for COVID-19, they should not be taking it. And if you're watching this and haven't kept up much with conservative media, you're probably like, why is he focusing so much on this one drug that's not effective? But as you saw in that montage earlier, it is so prevalent, constantly being talked about in conservative media as this miracle drug. Why is the left ignoring it? Oh my God, they don't want to admit that ivermectin can do what the vaccine is supposed to do. It's been nonstop. And now at this point, we've had a number of studies come out showing it's just not effective. So I'll say one more time, while I think you should get the vaccine, if other treatments are effective, that's wonderful. I want as little people to be harmed by COVID-19 as possible, but that doesn't mean we should be touting some random treatments before there's any evidence for them. So please, 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 especially with something as important as your health, you gather the proper evidence to inform yourself about which decisions you should make. Don't just trust your favorite commentator, because you just never know what their incentives are. I mean, we've seen a number of stories come out at this point about certain groups and individuals getting paid for ivermectin sales that they've encouraged people to make. So you just have to be careful and make sure you look into the data. But again, I just don't understand why the entire right-wing media verse seems to just instantly get on board and be completely adamant about random things like ivermectin. And then, we just looked at it's not effective, but then do you really think that people on Fox News are going to come out and say, I'm so sorry, I've been encouraging this particular medicine and I shouldn't have. We've seen that the data does not show it's effective. I just want to apologize. That was irresponsible. No, of course not. They get a bunch of eyeballs by convincing their audience that, oh my goodness, see, they're hiding these treatments. It's so crazy, a conspiracy. And then once it's disproved, they don't have to apologize for it. And so while I'm doing my little part, most people who believe ivermectin is something they should be taking aren't going to hear that now that some time has passed for it to be studied, it's not effective. They're not going to hear that. And that's what's so sad about the way that right-wing media operates. I'll say it now and I'll say it a million times. It is so important what type of media you consume. And regardless of if you think your media consumption is responsible and accurate, you have to do the proper fact checking of even people that you love. Make sure that purposefully or even accidentally, they're not feeding you false information. Here's what else you need to know today. Joe Biden is traveling to Europe to hold a set of emergency summits to organize the continued unified response of the West to Russia's attack on Ukraine. Ukrainian forces are pushing back, working to regain territory in some areas and continue to hold strong in others. This is amidst Ukrainian cities being fully destroyed by Russian forces. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court are going on, where many Republican lawmakers are attempting to frame her in a negative light in a number of different ways. I'll try to give you details on that in a video coming soon. And finally, Utah's Republican Governor Spencer Cox broke from his party and vetoed an anti-trans bill that had passed the state Congress. Be well, everybody.